This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
I think that's something that I want to spend the rest of this video focused on, because I think a lot of people have talked about that it's bad and have broke out different stats on why it's bad. And then I've talked about what you could do after it. Let's try to have a conversation about what went wrong here. And I want to have a deeper conversation about this than the surface level one, right? Because people are going to say, oh, well, maybe it's the coach or it's the system that they try to put them in. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. When you have a physical injury, we respect that in terms of what that can do to your ability to play football going forward, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody coming off an ACL injury, it could be Nick Chubb. He coming off an ACL injury, I don't know if he's going to be 100%, right? What we don't respect is when that player is coming off of no matter how you feel about it, a significant off the field issue, how that can have a similar effect to that player's ability to lock in and play football. Because as much as we don't like to admit it, much as we like to be the most masculine, macho men that we could be, what goes on in our life affects other parts of our life. That's just how it works, right? And I think that is the number one thing that I can point to when I look at the decision making that Andrew Berry specifically has made that he needs to improve on, is I don't think he factors that in enough of hey, this guy has off the field issues. What does that mean for his availability? One, because Perrion Winfrey, Michael Hall, we've seen that whole issue go down. But also how does having a situation where you get suspended 6 games in your career for this situation off the field, how does that affect your trajectory and your ability to process things and trust authority enough to accept coaching and all of that, right? These are the things that I think went wrong with Watson, because physically, I don't know if anything's that wrong with him to where he would look like this. It looks mental. You've mentioned it before. And I'm wondering okay, how did it get to this place mentally? And it's one thing if we're talking about 2022, he's fresh off of all this stuff and he looks like this. He did not look like this in 2023. You come back to 2024, he looks worse. And it's mental. It looks mental, at least. And it's we just assume he'd be able to brush this off. Mm-hmm. He'd be able to lock in and be like Kobe and play through all of this. And I think we clearly underestimate. Every time he has something pop up in the news about this, I get texts from people in Berea. I'm pretty sure you get the text from people in Berea. He didn't look great at practice today. You have to evaluate that part of it too. And more so than just evaluating, you got to respect it, because they should have treated this like trading for a player with a torn Achilles. Hey, can he get back to this? Should we give him this contract knowing that he's coming off a torn? Think about what would not have happened and what you would not have fallen into with this Deshaun Watson situation if instead of the off the field situation he missed 2021 because he tore his Achilles.
You're right.
We probably would have been a lot more hesitant to fall into these things or have seen these things coming. But because it was something that's more on the mental side of it, we tend to think that it's just going to go away. But these things, trauma is tough. You lose a loved one, that takes years to recover from. You have all these things going on in your life, and I don't know what else is going on in Deshaun's life other than this. It could be possible that has nothing to do with the case that's going on, and has something to do with some personal grieving process that he's going through. Something else could be happening. I'm not trying to act like it could be it's just this one thing that could happen here for him, but we really need to start respecting those situations' ability to kind of affect how a player can play. And I think it also works hand in hand where the athletes need to affect it, because you wouldn't go out there and try to play on a torn Achilles, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, if you're going through it, you need to say to yourself, I can't play right now.
I think there's a couple of things. And I'm gonna give you. I'll say it because you said a lot there, and I'll try to unpack some of it. But I've examined and I've thought about that side for a long time. I'll give you kind of I guess a thought here. When you're coming after a guy who has such a polarizing figure, and I sometimes I even laugh and say he has a cult following. When you coming after Baker Mayfield, now you have to understand, like, to Cleveland, we lose, go 1-31, we get the number one overall pick. The whole beer cooler story with the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Baker was one of the guys, and Baker closely identifies his attitude, the way he goes about things. He's shotgunning beers, right? Like he personifies a lot of what people value in this system and in the Cleveland fan base. So you're invested, and it's different when you're the number one pick. We chose you, we drafted you, like, you know what I mean? It's different from being a guy who we traded for. So not only does Deshaun Watson come in as a guy that was replacing Baker Mayfield, who had a cult following, he also is the person who has to come after that. That he's not. He's the antithesis of what Baker Mayfield is. Baker is brash, talks a lot. He pumps his team up. Deshaun is kind of quiet. He's kind of reserved. Not to mention, he comes with all these allegations. He sat out a year. Fans aren't really a fan of players sitting out, so to speak. He had the allegations. Those ring the most for a lot of different people. And right then, people were out on him. There was a certain part of the population that were out. Now, there was probably a larger amount of the population that if he just plays good football, they're willing to, ride it out because they are Browns fans. And heck, we want people that are going to get us to a championship and win. And so when that didn't happen, you have a contingency of the fan base that's saying, okay, well, look, we did kind of get rid of Baker. We got the picks. They gave him the money. And now they're just making a tally sheet. Boom, 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 boom. And that's all been addressed. But you have to think about it on the opposite side of the spectrum. And to give you an analogy, we all been in high school. We've all been in middle school. And you, obviously, I believe your father had a background in the military. Is that correct?
Yeah, my dad was in the Navy.
And just by that default, a lot of other military kids are bouncing here. We on a base this way, we on a base this way, we on a base here, right? And you get to school, and every time you got to reestablish. You got to look around. Whose lunch table am I sitting at today? And that could be a level of angst that is involved. Now imagine coming to the school, and you're coming to the school and you were picked to replace the coolest guy in the school that left by some stretch of the imagination. It got to a place where, at least at home, Quincy, if people outside of the bubble don't like you locally, and if they don't like you nationally, at least you got the backing of the people, right? But then you got Joe Flacco who comes in. And not only do you have Flacco and they're calling for Flacco, people were upset when Flacco left. People say the offense looks better. And I knew he was in trouble when people said this. When he had surgery and they said Deshaun Watson's not on the field with his team, he's in the press box with his girlfriend. I said, oh, listen, this is getting tough because they are espousing things that don't even mean, like, everybody is supposed to be in the press box. You are a hazard to people's health while you're down there after a surgery. And so I think go ahead.
I think you bring up another point to this because I was focusing on more of the Browns underestimating that, but I also think like Watson might have underestimated what he was getting signed up for.
Yes.
Because it just happens so much with Cleveland, and like only people. And like, I don't mean to alienate somebody who's from Ohio, but strongly identifies with Cleveland, right? Yeah. But like, if you're from Cleveland, like I'm from Cleveland, like I went to Maple Heights, like 20 minutes from downtown. I could take the 93F and get the Tower City. Like, I'm from Cleveland. And I think what people don't understand about that is this city will gravitate to different kind of personalities, like East Coast type people, right? Like, we're really an East Coast type city. Like we kind of have, I always describe it as like, imagine if Philly and Boston had a chip on their shoulder. That's Cleveland. Right. Like, and I think sometimes people come in here and they think that because it's not Philly, because it's not Boston or New York, that it's going to be a much more laid back environment, right? Where we're just going to be like it's like a college team, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is also something that caught Baker Mayfield off guard. Like
I thought caught Odell Beckham Jr. off guard.
It catches people off guard, right? Because they're not expecting. I think we got to do a better job of like within the Browns itself, like the social media people and the public relations folk. They got to do a better job of letting people know what it actually is, because I think they be selling these players dreams, right? Yeah. That this is something that it's not. Look, the same way if you played in Philly or New York, you just got to be able to accept the fact that they might boo you. It's what it is in Cleveland. Like, it's what it is in Chicago. It's what it is in Cleveland. It's not so much in Detroit. They don't seem to be as like angry as us, but like it is what it is, right? And it keeps catching folk off guard. And I'm like, is there not one person who's actually from Cleveland in that building to be like, hey dog, this, like, here's the thing I'm wondering about. Me and you, we both have been around this city long enough, lived in it, from it, whatever, that we know if he don't play well Sunday, ain't no way you could bring him here week 7 versus the Bengals.
No.
Like, you can't do that. Like, the fans ain't about to do, this is not about to go the way that you think it's going to go. This is going to go, and this is going to be, you're going to scar people on the team that have nothing to do with Deshaun Watson.
It's going to go
because
left.
This is going to be ugly, right? Because we know how this city can be. And like, I love that this city can be there. I love the East Coast tendencies of Cleveland Browns and Cleveland folk, because that's me. Like, I will give you credit when you play well. You have seen this. I'll even if I don't like you, like, I'll give you credit if you play well, and make sure that it's loud as my criticism when you play poorly. But if you play poorly, we're not about to sugarcoat that for nobody. We come out here and talk about Myles Garrett crazy sometimes. Like, that's just what the city is.
I think they be trying to sell it like we fans or we cheerleaders, like, you know what I'm saying? If you go to Cleveland, the fan base is so great, they'll love you, they'll adore you. Yeah, bro. Like, what like if you're doing your thing.
This is what I don't understand with the disconnect that people have with the city of Cleveland. Some of the most famous angry sports fans moments have happened in the city of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Why do people not understand this? And like, I know that people try to fight against it. Oh, we shouldn't be that angry. But like, this is it's bigger than just like how fans act at the game. This is just how the city is. Like, this is just how we react to things. It's not bad. I think the culture of the city of Cleveland is phenomenal. I'm just saying this is part of it. Like, you put a football team in Cleveland, you play some bad football, they gonna boo you because that's how it goes in Cleveland. We're not really gonna sit here and be like, oh, well, let's give it 8 weeks. Like, that's not how that goes in Cleveland at all.
If you're gonna be showstoppers, like, listen, somebody told somebody was like, yeah, man, we're gonna draft Shedeur Sanders. I said, in Cleveland,
he better be ready.
I said, listen, the first time
this ain't Colorado.
The first time he do the rolling, matter of fact, Johnny Manziel undersold it. Like, he was like, dang, these folks found me out in Las Vegas. I had a disguise on. This is crazy. These boys was on me. Look, I think
it's really not that different from being in New York. They will find you. They will talk about it. Like, it's not that different. And like, I think we keep trying to sell it as something that's different. And I'm like, we just got to embrace what this city is. And like, that's why I'm saying, like, I am worried about this when it comes to like, are they reading the room close enough? Does Jimmy actually have a good read on what's going on? Because me and you and everybody else that talks about this team every day, every week, we can tell you right now, there's not a single person who does this is familiar with the city on some level that's not saying, hey, you got to be careful about bringing this dude back home in week 7. Everybody's there. Every beat reporter I've talked to, like, we're here with that. I don't think they understand that yet.
I think another thing that we haven't talked about yet is this. So I've had an opportunity. I've interviewed Deshaun Watson briefly. I've had an opportunity to meet his mother. I've met his brothers in passing at certain press conferences. And I think one time, and I'm not going to say who said this, and I thought, ooh, this could be bad. When his father died, somebody said, well, that shouldn't affect him because allegedly I heard him and his father don't have a relationship. And I said, I didn't want to educate him on
yeah, that whole aspect of it, for those of y'all who might not understand why that might be, I don't want to speak on that specific situation, right? Because obviously I don't know that man, nor do I know that man's family, right? Well enough to speak on it. But from what I can say is that if you don't have a relationship or did not have a great relationship with a parent, that parent passing is even a bigger deal because you have absolutely no closure and you have no chance to ever repair that relationship. So I would not underestimate the damage that could do to somebody. And again, like I'm saying, and my whole point to this, G, is, but like as the athletes and the general managers got to figure out, like, hey man, you got to treat something like that like an injury. Like, you can't just, I know we got the story about Brett Favre coming back and throwing 400. And like, I think a lot of athletes have it in their mind that, oh yeah, I'm going to just be able to power through this. And like, I know how it is when I've had some passings in my family, I've chosen to work and that's been something that's worked out for me, but that's how I work. I think you got to, like, when that happens, you really got to like have a real evaluation of like, hey, should I continue to play right now? Like, am I at the right place to play? Because some people, they do real good with that compartmentalizing. Sometimes too good. It ends up hurting them in the future, right? Some people can't compartmentalize. And that don't mean you a weak person or anything like that. That just means that's what your situation is. And if that's your situation, you got to do what you got to do to handle that situation, because it's going to come out and it's going to affect. Like, it's just, we don't respect that part of it. And I think that, to me, is the number one lesson that I'm going to pull away from this, is like, hey, if the Browns go after a player who's had controversy like this before or has a lot going on in their life, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, these are the numbers on the field only and only evaluate that. I'm going to have to be like, hey, we got to seriously figure out like whether this dude's going to be in the right place to even be who he used to be. That's where I think Deshaun Watson is. I don't think he's in the right place to even become close to what he used to be. And I think he's years of work away from ever being that.
And you know what? I like the way that you approach this, because it gives a little bit of humanity to it. I know a lot of times, and it kind of triggers me a little bit sometimes, because sometimes we talk about players like there are little toy soldiers in the play box, and if one toy soldier gets, a leg bitten off by your dog, you discard them and you bring in a new box that your mom got.
We don't do a good job of talking about these dudes. It's like I was talking to Brad Ward about this, and he was like, I don't understand how the locker room is this different in everybody's back. I'm like, every family reunion I've ever gone to be different. It be the same people at them family reunions though, because people be going through shit over years, right? Like every single family gathering, every single Christmas party, every single July 4th or whatever it is your family gathering is different, because people go through stuff over the year. Nobody's the same exact person they were the year prior. Every time me and G Bush talk, it's something different going on. We might be going through something different. The energies might be there. Like people, they're not characters on a video game. They're gonna have stuff that they go through, and that's gonna affect how they're able to play. And that's just gonna be kind of a fact of the situation. Like, there's nothing you could do about that. And that kind of goes down to what you brought up, which is like, when we talk about these athletes, we only talk about them as warriors, right? It's like, what are they physically, or are they physically well enough to play right now? And I think the question should also factor in, like, hey, man, like, if this person is not doing well for whatever reason, and we don't got to be judgmental about why that reason is, and like, this isn't exclusive to just Deshaun Watson. Like, this could be going on with a number of players on the team. Like, I don't know what's going on with people right now, but we got to think about that, right? Like, because I don't know how many times a player's gone out there hurt the team because they're playing in a mental state that they really shouldn't be playing at.
Kirk Cousins,
and it's like,
Kirk Cousins did this on the quarterback. Have you watched the quarterback show? It was on Netflix. They had Kirk
I have
Cousins.
not been able to watch the whole season.
One of the things I gained a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins, just because of he said, listen, I never asked for certain days off. Like when I negotiated my contract, I forget what day of the week he said he wanted off, where he had no contact with the team, period. It was just him and his family. He said, I need my family structure. That's part of getting me to be able to play. He also went to a sports psychologist and talked about putting, football players put that so much work and energy into it. They sacrifice birthdays and everything else. They make a bunch of money. They don't even got time to spend it because they're always worried about being the face of something. He talks about having to go to, and they showed one of his sessions briefly about him describing, like, wow, man, like he said, he was just talking about something basic. Like there was a game where everything went wrong, and the team didn't even play that well and they won. And then he talks about the game where he put all the preparation in the week. The week felt good. The team played, excellent on offense, and they lost. And he said that dichotomy and that oxymoron about like the way the games go, it takes a mental toll on you because you start to question and second guess everything. Like, am I doing every single thing? Maybe if I stayed up 6 more hours, or if I slept in the office, this would work. And that mental preparation part of it is so tough and taxing that it puts you in a different space.
It's certainly interesting. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at this Deshaun Watson thing. And I wanted to have the conversation about like how it happens more in depth because I feel like that hasn't been talked about a ton. And G, appreciate you coming on here. Look, man, we're going to leave here with some silver linings.
What's
right?
the silver lining?
We're going to silver lining. We're going to leave here with some hope, right? Because you know what? We're going to watch these games on Sunday. So.
Yeah, we are.
What's your silver lining for the Browns right now? And you can't use Nick Chubb.
You dirty. You a dirty dude. You a jerk, bro. Like,
hey, bro, I'm gonna make you work for it. Yeah, we gonna work for it. Hey, okay. Yeah. No easy dubs.
So the silver lining is this. This may seem backwards. I think in 3 to 4 weeks, you're gonna find out for the first time a lot, like not no surface level stuff. You're gonna find out about the core of the Cleveland Browns. You're gonna find out if the team is gonna play hard for Kevin Stefanski. I think you're gonna figure out in a couple of weeks whose issue is it. You're gonna find out, is it the quarterback or was it the coordinators? Because as we talked about earlier in the show, I think you're gonna have a process of elimination. If you sit Deshaun Watson down and Jameis Winston comes into the game and he balls out, I think you have your conversation. I think you know what it was and you feel fine with moving along and going to rebuild what you need to do. Then you get another evaluation. You get an evaluation of saying, okay, is Jameis playing well? Is that well enough, good enough to examine whether he could be a restart type guy? If he plays good, but he plays bad enough that they want to look at DTR, you get to see is DTR a Brock Purdy type guy, right? So for the first time in a long time, you will get a lot of you'll be watching these games. There'll be something to watch for. There's going to be watching to see what the improvement is. Is Kevin Stefanski going to be the calling the plays? If he may give the plays to Dorsey, we don't know what he's going to be. Also, there could be a change if they win enough games, and if they go to the change quick enough, you may even see the old playbook. You may just see because something gonna give. Either that playbook is coming back, or they giving up them play calling duties, or Watson ain't gonna be. It's not gonna be static. If they keep playing the way they will, you will see a change somewhere. And then at that point, you can make an evaluation. To me, I'm not looking at playoffs per se. And I think the Cleveland Browns fans are at a point where, and this is bad to say, they're just looking for some exciting football, man. Competent football. And that's how far we've come. We're not talking about playoffs. We talk about they just would like to see competent football where you have some semblance of offense that you're seeing in these other games and some of the energy level that the Browns played with last year when they were grossly undermanned.
Yeah, I would go, my silver lining is we are going to really have a good idea for the crisis management skills of everybody in charge. Like, if the Browns are able to get out of this one, right? And look, I think it's possible that they probably find a way to get out of this one, right? I know a lot of people are making a big deal about the salary cap issues that Deshaun Watson is going to give this team, but I think they can figure out how to get around that. Like, they're creative enough to figure out how to manipulate the salary cap to do what they want there.
Oh, they're wizards there.
Demonstrate. Yeah, they demonstrated that. And I would say this. If you get out of this with your feet still clean, you ain't never gonna be worried about walking into problems anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We will feel if they could walk out of this and get to a 10-win season next year or the year after, and things are relatively normal, we're gonna say to ourselves whenever something pops up, we'll figure it out. Right? We done figured it. We done figured worse out. Right? Basically, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Or at least, I know that term kind of gets made fun of now because there's a lot of things that does not technically kill you, but definitely does weaken you.
Oh, it could maim you. You could be maimed.
What you leave with the ability to learn from will only make you smarter. How about that? Right?
It's like yeah. Q, it's funny. It's like, sometimes when you start making videos in the beginning and you hit a little wall after you did a couple of them, like tomorrow, you're not worried about a Browns topic. You see what I'm saying? They're readily available because you're a battle tester. You could just pick it out of the sky. Here's another.
Look, see, I've been through this since 2018. So when it started to look like a quarterback change, I'm like, well, I've been through this before.
Yeah, let me dust these old questions off.
it's like I know what to look for, right? Yeah. Because I survived the last one. Yeah. And that's what experience is. I know how to avoid mistakes because you know what? I was that kid that was hard-headed. And I made those mistakes, right? I was the one that was stubborn about a take and didn't realize when I needed to just reevaluate something, right?
Let it go.
I've been there. I've learned. I've been able to improve over the years because I've been able to make mistakes, learn from them, and get on with it, right? But you can't expect somebody to improve if you fire them every time they fuck up. And that's my thing here. Is it's okay, if we get out of this and we can evaluate, hey, we made some mistakes. I think Andrew Berry has done some promising things as general manager. Obviously, there's some things I would fix that what he's done, but he ain't going to ever fix them if you just fire him, right? Or Kevin Stefanski does some stuff that legitimately really impressive stuff. Both Coach of the Year awards he earned, and it was impressive how he got to both those Coach of the Year awards. But we can't sit here and act like Kevin Stefanski don't do stuff that drives us crazy, or Kevin Stefanski has some tendencies here that you would wish he would reevaluate. Well, he can't reevaluate them if he ain't the coach. So you gotta give him in his.
We was wrapping this up. We was gonna wrap this up. You can give me a quick answer. You give me
I'll give you.
How many more games can they afford to have? And they say there's no changes being made, because I do think there's a corrosive property to that. And
yes.
I'm scared. Kevin Stefanski, if he's listen, do not set yourself up. You cannot do that. They're going to turn. And when that grace period ends, they will look directly at you because they're going to say, you didn't make any changes and moves. And we're 1-9.
You have to make this decision when it's still a choice. You can't wait till it's intolerable. I don't know when that point's going to come. If Deshaun throws 4 interceptions against the Eagles, at that point, it's about to become intolerable. You got to bench him, right? It becomes intolerable if he throws 4 interceptions, and then you start him against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then after that, you have to bench him. It's like, hey, I don't know. The stench might be on you at that point, right? Like you gotta bench him before this becomes a obviously intolerable situation. Right now, it's not a good situation, and obviously, I think a lot of people would be okay with moving on from this. I think most people would be okay with moving on from this at this point, even if it's just 5 games into this season. I think a lot of people are like, you know what, we could be done. But if it gets to the point to where you're starting to hear the locker room leak stuff, you know how it goes. They start to, because right now, to Kevin's credit and to this locker room's credit, they 10 toes down right now. Like they still holding strong. Like we're not here. We might be questioning the effort that we're seeing, but we're not.
Is the first thing to go, but we haven't heard leaks.
We haven't heard
sources.
Yeah,
Sorrows of the world.
Remember the stuff we was hearing when it was rap with Freddie Kitchens, where it's like, oh, the Tom Maka don't even care no more. All this stuff, like, come get me. Like, we're not getting that yet. They've held strong on this far, and they're still vocally supportive when they're asked about Deshaun Watson in press conference. Once they become vocally indifferent, or like you start to hear reports that, you know, some of these players would prefer a change at quarterback, or like a serious report that Myles Garrett might want to consider the Browns, like, make a change. Like, once that happens and like the team is doing that because they don't think that pushing through change through you is a possibility, they got to go to the media to put pressure on the Deshaun Watson to get benched. If that happens, that's a bad sign. It's a horrible sign for Kevin Stefanski. And I don't know if that's something he can recover from. But as long as you avoid that, however long that takes, and I wouldn't test it because we're close. I'm just telling you, we're close.
It took a huge gap in Washington. That Washington Commanders tape was so bad that it took a chunk out of that grace period out of the way. Now you're going to, and here's the thing that I think they can't do. Getting smoked by NFC East teams is a thing.
But you start losing in division, and you look. Here's the thing too. You know how it is when you play like in conference or something like that. They start talking that cash money, and they know you. So they saying stuff, and now you mad, right? Now your pride's being attacked.
Now it's like, we not gonna do that to Joe Burrow. We and the Steelers of the race, we not about to do that. We can't afford to get smoked in it. That's when the owner shows up. And like in the locker room, and he's caught in the hallways, like looking around, loitering. That's when it happens. All right. We on the same page.
That's where I'm at with
it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can't let this go on to like the traditional. Oh, we're gonna wait till we lose the whole season and then like
wait till the bye and then evaluate,
or like or do the Baker Mayfield 2021 where he takes himself out. Like, yeah, we ain't gonna you can't let it get to that point, and like Kevin can't let that happen twice.
I forgot about
like
that.
Yeah, that's my whole thing there. Like, I understand and appreciate Kevin is a patient person. I think that helps out. But also, I think sometimes you need to have the tact to understand, all right, it's time to be patient here. And other times, it's time to be pertinent, right? I don't know if I use that word correctly, but what I do mean is you got to make the decision when the decision comes to be made. But that's what I think about that, man. Gee, a fun conversation to have here. Always enjoy to have you on. Got the fresh cut on. Looking clean. Saw you won an award. I checked your Twitter. I was like, oh, he won an award recently. You know, at least like the Emmy Award winner is in your bio now, right?
I did. I won that a little bit ago. You know, shout out to the Academy. You know what I'm saying? I just, I thought you was talking about I won an award.
That's why you came on here answering the question like that.
I appreciate you.
Like you was on CNN or something like that. You know, like I was like, what's going on with him? Like,
Quincy's real name is Quincy Therius.
Quincy Therius? That don't even. All right. It's time to go. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.